Many highly rational minds eventually walk away from traditional theology, but the root cause usually is not a sudden loss of faith. It is an underlying friction with classical Newtonian physics. For centuries, Christian theology has been inadvertently mapped onto a strictly three-dimensional Newtonian framework of space and time. In a 3D universe, objects, and by extension entities, must occupy specific coordinates. This mental model forces a view of the divine as physically distant, located somewhere up there, or restricted temporally to ancient history and distant futures. In a strictly localized grid, proximity determines access. If the divine is restricted to specific coordinates, at the start of history or the end of time, the gap between the observer and the source becomes a vast physical expanse. Bridging that void requires a transactional model of merit and mediation to ensure one isn't left behind. This relational distance is the origin of the fear OS. It is a 1,500-year backpack of fear, an obsolete theological operating system that views the divine through the lens of separation and appeasement. The contemporary crisis of faith is exactly this. People are trying to process the concept of infinite immanence through a 3D physical framework that cannot compute it. What we need now is a third reformation. We have to remap theological concepts onto the established physics of the 21st century. Discoveries in general relativity and quantum mechanics are often viewed as secular challenges to faith. Instead, they provide the exact vocabulary required for this system upgrade. We are replacing the 16th century metric, defined by distance and fear, with a 21st century system defined by continuous presence and love. By adopting modern physical models, we eliminate the distance fallacy entirely. We can mathematically architect a precise model of divine presence that aligns with the known laws of the universe. We start by solving the problem of time. Traditional doctrine isolates divine action to the historical past, like the first century, or defers it to an unpredictable future. The solution comes from a shift in our understanding of space and time, initiated by Albert Einstein. This is a visualization of the four-dimensional block universe, an implication of general relativity. In this model, time does not flow linearly. It exists as a fixed four-dimensional structure. Because of this geometry, every coordinate of time exists simultaneously. The past, present, and future are all equally real, fixed points within the block. When applied to the concept of a divine perspective, omnipresence in time looks very different. It does not mean supernatural foresight or predicting a linear future. It means a concurrent observation of the entire four-dimensional block. An entity outside this block is equally present at the exact moment of the Big Bang and within the current microsecond you are experiencing right now. The block universe defines eternity as a structural constant of 4D spacetime, where the geometry of simultaneity provides a literal alternative to abstract metaphors. Next, we address the problem of space. In a classical universe spanning 13.8 billion light-years, it is logically difficult to explain how a single divine presence could interact locally, everywhere, all at once. For the spatial fix, we look to the research that won the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. They proved the mechanics of quantum entanglement. This is a physical phenomenon where two particles instantly correlate their states, entirely neutralizing the distance between them. This demonstrates that our universe allows for instantaneous, non-local connections. Information does not always have to travel through the physical space between 2 points. We map this non-locality directly onto theology. Divine immanence is no longer restricted by geographic location or the cosmic speed limit of light. Entanglement provides the exact mathematical framework we need. It gives us a verified mechanism to explain simultaneous interaction at every possible point in the universe. We can synthesize these temporal and spatial fixes into an analog based on quantum field theory. Think of it as a ubiquitous cosmic background field, similar in structure to gravity. We call this specific field the Eden love field, or ELF. It is a non-local, relational field that permanently replaces the outdated concept of an empty spatial void between us and the divine. To interact with this field, there must be a human receiver. Ancient texts pointed to this hardware in Genesis chapter 2, describing a divine breath given to humanity. We redefine this unchanging internal essence as a divine fragment. It acts as an embedded, literal antenna inside the human node. The ancient command to ask, seek, and knock describes the mechanical act of frequency tuning this internal antenna so it perfectly resonates with the surrounding ELF. Spiritual communion is an engineered resonance between a local node and a universal field, and when that connection locks in, it generates measurable internal feedback, a state documented historically as causeless joy. The final challenge for this framework is reconciling a highly specific 21st century Christian theology with the ancient data points recorded by Eastern spirituality. We approach this through structural isomorphism, a concept known theologically as inclusive Christocentrism. This is the theory that different global traditions are observing the exact same spiritual physics, utilizing different cultural instruments. We can use Buddhism's concept of an unchanging internal essence, often called Buddha nature, as our primary comparative point. This data visualization matrix maps these systems side by side to find intersecting data points. Both the Upanishads and Buddhism align closely with the Christian framework on the concepts of internal eminence and an unchanging essence. The data sets diverge solely when defining the mechanical nature of the field itself and navigate. The Christian framework defines the field as a personal entity, which requires relational communion. Treating these worldviews as distinct datasets measuring the same universal constant allows for a rational integration of Eastern philosophy, all while maintaining the specific historical singularity of the Western tradition. So, what does this integrated Third Reformation mean practically for a professional operating in a complex, data-driven world? This framework shifts the human experience toward the Eden game. The objective moves from mastering a trial of sin avoidance to mastering active relational resonance. The core feedback loop of this game is straightforward. Local nodes tune into a universal field, receive the signal, and output localized acts of love into their immediate environment. Every configuration of relational love represents a distinct data point in the system. Under the principle of quantum information conservation, or unitarity, these interactions are never lost. They constitute permanent structural modifications to the 4D block, preserved as the fundamental information content of the universe. Our modern universe is a perfectly engineered architecture. When you strip away the outdated topographies, you find that rigorous physics and profound faith are running the exact same operating system.